All right, all right. Good day, everyone. Good day, everyone. It is myself, your girl, Doctor. You are covered. I'm extremely excited, and I appreciate everyone's patience coming from the Zoom webinar space to here on YouTube and across other platforms. We're excited to be here. On behalf of Change the Narrative nonprofit, I want to say thank you all for your support in the last year as we made the launch last year in August. We're excited to be a nonprofit, to be able to do the mission work. And with that being said, here's a contributing component to what we plan to do in each area that we service. That's going to be California, Tennessee, New York, New Jersey, and the DMV area. So yes, we have initiatives in 5 states coming out the gate, and we're super excited about that. Our mission and what we do is to change the narrative with the 3C principles in mind, challenge the rhetoric, consider yourself, and change the narrative. And we assist organizations that are already in play, that are already working hard and diligent, and maybe they just need some support. Maybe they're understaffed or they need visibility. Whatever that need is, we build a united front with them and we come in support. And that's in those 5 states, like I mentioned. We also have several initiatives of our own. We have the Change the Narrative Leading Ladies, which we're excited about. They celebrate their second year come this April. We will be celebrating also next month. We'll be doing a compilation video, and I'll talk more about that toward the end, where I'm going to petition people to participate in that. But that's going to be for our Women's Her Story Month. Yes, Women's Her Story Month. Next month, we know March is also International Women's Day. So, in lieu of those things, we're going to collaborate and have a compilation video with some dynamic, powerful women, such as the wonderful dynamic women and gentlemen on this here platform with me. I'm so excited to be in partnership and friendship and fellowship and familyship with these wonderful people. We don't just, work together, but we have shared plenty of experience together. Warm embraces is one of the most important. I've, been able to have that hug, have that love. You know that song, cheek to cheek? Okay, breast to breast. Okay, it's real. And I appreciate and love each and every one of the panelists. And not just for that, but they are very well established in what they do and their passions, and we have shared vision, and this is why we're coming together. So without going any deeper, because I'll have plenty of time to speak, and I want everyone to really get a chance to hear what they have to say about their different platforms and where they're from and what they have going on, but also to speak to their topics, which when I was doing the topics for this event, it was so interesting how everyone here came to mind. And I was like, well, I don't know, this person might not like the topic. They may want to do something else. And everyone got that same message. Yeah, I want you to do this because for me, it sounds like, what you can speak to, from what I know. But if you want to change it, go ahead and change it. And I'm so glad that it worked out that everyone was settled with their topic and even embodied it a bit like, oh, I can take this, and, they felt good and comfortable about it. So that's really amazing. What I'm going to do really quickly before we get into, like I said, the weeds of it in terms of me, I can go on and on and on and on, but I want to take a moment to introduce our guests. And as they come up, like I said, they will definitely introduce themselves and speak more about what they have going on. But I'm grateful to have Rita Ofari, who I am able to work with in the financial space. So we have that financial landscape that I will be talking about later on. But Rita is here on a more personal level. She's here to give us her own personal testimony and story as to how she learned history as a woman from Ghana that's been here in this country for some time. What does that look like? So we have a diversity aspect of this because the country right now, we can't say it's one or the other. It's a very diverse place. And we know they're coming and they said, hey, no more diversity, inclusion. That's fine. We're talking about the reality. Okay. When you go anywhere, you see a myriad of folks. So We appreciate you for being here. We also have my brother Teton Moffitt, who comes with a vast amount of experience from the political landscape to the parental landscape, which he's going to talk more about. And he has media background across all different sectors. So I'm excited. I'm excited because there's connection and somebody needs what Teton has and what Miss Rita has. And of course, peace, God, with my good brother Knowledge Born Allah has to bring, and he is going to talk about the brutal truth. We come from the concrete jungle, they call it. So there's some grit there. There's some real earth shaking and roses being blown through the concrete that my good brother Knowledge will speak to with the brutal truth. And I have my sister, my friend, many of years, and I mean many of years, all types of things have gone on, and we've shared so many of experiences. Dr. Trey Manisha Lamley from Richmond. Well, I'm not gonna say from because she already gonna tell y'all where she's from, but where she is currently, doing the work that she does is in Richmond, Virginia, and she's going to talk about history is now. And I'm excited because she's going to give us the educational landscape, which is necessary for any forward motion. And last but not least, myself, I'm going to come and I'm going to share information because, like I said, the financial landscape is fundamentally necessary for us to move forward. We have to have finances in this US system. A lot of the system in itself is based on currency. So I'm going to talk about UR currency. And with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor over to Rita. She's going to give you her story. Rita, are you with me?
Yes, Dr. Yuval, thank you so much
I'm
for
so
this
glad to have
opportunity.
you, Rita. You go ahead and you take it away.
Yes, so I'm truly honored to be a part of this Black History Month to talk about history in the making. So, if I were to give a little brief background of myself, I came to this country when I was just 21 years old. I came with a big dream and a hope to succeed. Just a suitcase in hand and a few dollars. I had this courage of a young lady's courage, vision, just so I can make it. But actually, little did I know that my story as an immigrant, young immigrant coming to this country, is part of the bigger tapestry of this country where we have a lot of movement, immigration, whether some of this movement was by force or voluntarily, like in my case. The story was a story of courage, resilience, and dreams. So I came in here. I also, like I should say, I've spent most of my existing adult life in this country. So there was no roadmap to follow. I had to weather the system, learn the currency, learn everything on my own, just like every immigrant that steps on this soil has to do. So Black history, as it reminds us, as we honor the brave and courage of the people before us, it also offers us an inspiration as to how we can move forward, knowing where we've come from and moving forward. As I can see in my own children, like I've had children that were born here and raised here. So the part of the courage is to be able to empower them so that they can move forward, being it in finances, living legacies, everything that would empower them so they can move forward and move from generation to generation. So in my case, as I said, when I came in here, there was no roadmap. So I literally had to weather the system to figure out things. So it's my hope that I can help my children not to go through exactly what I went through from ground zero, and also to help other families and other generations so that we can all move forward and be empowered, especially in the finance system. Because as a licensed financial professional, that's what I do, empowering people for building their finances for today and leaving a legacy. So that is what I've been doing, and that is what I see moving forward with Black History Month, since our story has been one of courage, inspiration. We need to move forward and be able to build systems, legacies that we can leave from generation to generation. Thank you.
Awesome, Rita. Thank you so much for that share, for that insight. And we will get to Q&A. So as you hear these dynamic speakers come up, just write your questions down, keep them, because we will have a Q&A. We want to interact with you all. So that's why we're just going to give a quick piece of our thoughts around this topic and presentations. And then we want to engage with the audience because it's important for us to collaborate. And I just want to reiterate the reason that we are here today. This is not just a celebration. And like how Rita mentioned, you know, when folks are coming here, a lot of times they get the surface of what has happened or what is going on because of who's telling the story. This is why it's extremely important for us to do this. This is just the first year. This is not the last. This is the beginning of us making history. This is history in the making, because this is not just a celebration of the past. It's a declaration in the present. It's a declaration of the present, being present. It's a declaration for us moving forward. So as you come and you're part of this in the audience, we want you to participate in the chat. First and foremost, let us know where you're tuning in from. You know, how did you hear about us? Give us some insight, give us some feedback. Of course, we're going to all ask that you subscribe to the channel that you have joined in, and the other channels that are represented here. We want to stay connected. All right. So with that being said, you are a part of this. Your seat in this table right today is a part of history being made. So we will honor the past by declaring and investing in the present. We're going to equip attendees, you all, with wealth building strategies and financial legacy tools. We're going to foster community trust building and intergenerational wealth transfer. Like Rita said, we are wealth professionals as well. There are some other things we're going to announce later on, but this is why we are here. We are here to declare the present. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next speaker for today. And when we listen to the people talking, as we transition into the panelists that will speak to their actual niche and lens and things like that, be mindful that these are journeys. It's a process. And we encourage everyone that's coming here to be willing. You know, now I'll get into the why the willingness is so important when I present the information, but we want you to be willing to hear with a clean ear, and willing to, you know, absorb the information and be willing to collaborate. With all of that being said, I want to thank you, Rita, again, and to the next speaker, T. Time Moffitt, strategic communications, 15 plus years, government, media, higher education, nonprofit, corporate sectors across the board. T. Time Moffitt, you have the floor, sir.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for this opportunity. I want to graciously thank the host, Miss UR, and the wonderful guests that are a part of this conversation. I'm grateful to be here. I had some slides, but I think that my slides, I can talk. So let me just cut my slides down a little short. I was asked to talk about how deep and how wide pride is, or the Black pride, or our history. And one of the things that I find very important, as the sister just finished speaking about her native country, is that this is a universal conversation, but I want to compact it down to real life experiences, because a lot of times we could consume a lot of narratives, right? A lot of the narratives that we consume are narratives of a ethnic group of people that look like us, of course, but sometimes those narratives are repeating itself over and over again, and they begin to sound like a program. Because when you look around, I don't know about any of you all, but when you zoom out and you look at the whole entire picture, we'll begin to understand, and I'm understanding, that the sky is not falling. I believe that we've been programmed to believe that the sky is falling, despair, woe is me, the black this, the black that, and blah, 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 blah. Now, this is just my experience and my opinions. I've served in the military. I've lived in Japan for over 10 years. I traveled the world, and I had one of the most wonderful experiences experiencing culture and recognizing our identity all over the world. And when I came back to America, it's like, what's wrong with y'all folks? You know, these people all over the world recognize who we are. They understand our culture, and they mimic and they desire to be as though we are. So let's start here. When you think about the depth and the width of culture, our Black pride, our Black history, I find it important to first recognize those who have labored, those ancestors, those advocates, those builders, those visionaries, those individuals that sacrificed their families, they sacrificed their time. They were refusing to fight. A lot of them are still recognized and celebrated today, right? But what I want to submit to you all to get us to think outside the box is almost like taking a black circle and putting it on the wall and removing everything in that circle that you thought you knew and emptying that circle out. Just imagine this. And we hear about community. You know, I care about my community. We need to protect our community and do. But I'm of the belief, based upon my experiences, that the community starts within the mind. It starts between your ears. And I don't believe that how we can function without a sound mind. I'm not talking about perfection. First, community has to start within your mind. You have to recognize and understand what it is that you are called to do. Too often we have watched a lot of television and looked at enough YouTube videos and got the inspiration from the late Dr. Martin Luther King and, of course, the Malcolm X's. But I want us to really think about what's really important and what is our current issues of the day as we talk about the family, right? So if you have a wounded mind, right, you're going to produce a wounded community. Let's just start there. You can hand out as many juices, you can hand out as many food, you can do many shelters and all kinds of things. But if your mind is not stable, not perfect, but stable. Now, if you have a stable and secure mind, you have a secure heart, right? So your motives and your intentions, your desires to serve the community will be in you, not upon you, right? So it's not an act of celebrating or expressing how colorful I am or how ethnic I am or how passionate I am. It's, am I creating building for the future? And what does that look like? When we talk about pride, right? Our history of pride deals with resilience, right? Celebrating legacy, inspiring excellence, and building this Black brand, this Black excellence that we so passionately believe in. But I've come to realize that if we don't understand the importance of our families, our roles as fathers, our role as mothers, and get back to some foundational principles, because I think a lot of times we've been upgraded and downloaded and given information and being projected things that are not actually who we are. And so it's time to really look at our community. The first thing I've learned to believe is that if I've learned to discover my role as a father, if I heal my child wounds, if I begin to deal with me in a very honest way, because too often as a man, we would sit in the mirror and we can project whoever we want to be, right? We can become whoever we want to be. We have the downloads from the celebrities. And a lot of times we take our reference points from the entertainment industry to justify our position in society. And I think that's an error on the beginning of our conversation here. But what I've learned to understand is this: modeling a healthy home, not a perfect home, but having the understanding that you have to protect first your identity. And we fail to understand who we are. And so a good friend of mine, Mr. Common Denominator, we call him Clyde, he always used to tell us when we're looking for Black history and we're looking for Black excellence and pride, we need to go back home. Go back home to your grandfathers and your grantees and your aunties and sit with the elders and learn about who you are. We are a talented group of people. We're a very educated group of people. Don't misunderstand the narratives. But too often, we never get a chance to deal with our deficits because when everything is about image and how things look, we will never deal with the real issues. And now we continue to repeat the cycles. We're looking for saviors. We're looking for folks to replace this one or that one. Who's the next Malcolm X? Who's the next Barack Obama? Well, I want to present to you today, ladies and gentlemen, that I think that the family and the pride of the history and the legacy should start at home. It should start right here between your ears. Who am I? What is my purpose? What can I learn from the elders in the community? What narratives can I rewrite? And what information I can download to add to what I've learned and build legacy for my children and my children's children. Those are the heroes. That's the history for today, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I've experienced. I grew up in a family that was very militant, Black Panther family. My father became elected official. He was heavily involved in the community. He cared about his community. He demonstrated everything that was necessary. But I want to help us understand that everything must begin in our homes, in our stabilities of our mind, understanding the government that we have of our children. We've allowed a system and a society to rule over the things that we're responsible for. Yet, our greatest pride and our greatest glory is that we got a basketball player, we got the first entertainer, we got the first this one and the first that one. But I want to challenge men and women, specifically the fathers, to consider the most important thing. In order for you to make history, and how deep that history is going to go is what your family says about you, what your community says about you, but most importantly, what your children say. Our legacy, our history has to be redeveloped, reestablished in the home. Now, I'm not talking about a whole bunch of legalism and patriarchy and all this kind of narratives that we're used to hearing on the internet. What I'm talking about is having the ability to recognize that even though I'm articulate, even though I can speak, I'm full of deficits, I'm full of shortcomings. What do I do to build an economic strategy? How do I build a framework to be a better father? How do I build a framework to speak highly of their mother and to be a leader in my community? I must first understand who I am, where I come from. And today I submit to my panel, to all my guests, you all are Black history now. Again, respect to all the elders, respect to all the ancestors who've done the great work and those that supported us from other ethnicities and other countries. But I'm here to challenge the family. The family is not disorder or dysfunctional. The family just needs to be realigned. And that realignment starts with the leadership in the home. It starts with those that have influence over our children. We sit around, and there was a time when my family and my children, my adult parents complained about me and during the 80s and the 90s. And here we are, we complain about these young folks. They're not, they can't, they won't. The key is hypocrisy breeds rebellion. And so no matter how proud you are of your skin color, your melanated selves, and how much has been accomplished from the first this to the first that, let it be known that the sky is not falling, Black people across the United States and all over the world. There are some people across our communities that are doing the work. And I want to admonish every man that's listening to the sound of my voice. You have a responsibility to make history, not to be famous, not to be great, but to lead your family and to love your wife and to manage the emotional system, the nervous systems in the home. We failed to recognize that in order for us to overcome a system, we must establish a system internally in order to govern that system externally, to raise up a strong community of people. And when you find out that it's not just about your ethnicity, but most importantly, it's about the heart of man. That's the biggest issue that we're encountering in today's society. The heart is deceitful and wicked. And no matter how much money, how much influence you have, and how much power you have, as a melanated brother and sister, you must have a heart for the people. And so I want to submit that as a thought. This is my experience. I don't stand in judgment of anything, but I do celebrate those who have done the work in our community. And I want to admonish the men and the leaders in our community, those that are listening, that you have to go within, you have to look in that mirror, and you have to go deep. deeper than a celebrity, deeper than being a basketball player, deeper than being a politician. You need to be a thought leader and a change agent, and that starts in your home. And that's where the history begins. I have a video I wanted to show. I don't know how much time we have. It's a minute and 10 seconds. And this video will give you a bird's eye view of where my passion speaks as it turns to our women, it turns to our children. My heart turns to my daughters. And I want to be able to tell the stories and give us the history, give us the code for our community to arise and upgrade our software and our information and to go forth and be great leaders. I want to see, we've seen enough Kings, we've seen enough Malcolms. I'm looking at my good brother Knowledge right there. He's Black history. I'm looking at our good panelists, our doctors on this panel. They're Black history. They are making history today. Let's celebrate the future now and remind us to go back home, find out where you come from, and heal the land.
Wow, that was amazing. And we thank you so much, Teton, for the passion, for the real, for the genuine perspective that you gave. I mean, how deep the matters of the heart. That is, man, the matters of the heart. And that's exactly how deep you have to go. You have to go internal. The society that we are in, everything is external. You know, to tell you to believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, yet tell you to believe all of what someone else sees, and everything you need is outside of yourself. But we just heard from my brother Teton Moffitt that in order to go deep and wide for your wives, for your children, for the generations ahead, you have to first go in and deal with the matters of the heart. I appreciate you, Teton. Thank you so much. We're going to have Q&A geared up for you soon. With that being said, and oh my gosh, I'm super excited to introduce this next panelist. My goodness. My good brother, Knowledge Born Allah. We've been rocking for some time. We've shared so many spaces and done interviews together. His platform is phenomenal. And I mean, like my brother Teton said, he's Black history. He stands in it. He operates in it. He is true to it. This is the CEO of Do the Knowledge Radio, DTK Multimedia Productions, the story alchemist and authentic voice of Black life globally. Peace, God. This is my good brother, y'all. Knowledge Born Allah. You have the floor, sir.
See, when we was in this huddle, Doc, I was so glad that I don't have to go after Teton and look at God. Okay, won't she do it? You understand what I'm saying? Like now the bar
What had
is set
happened was
very high. I love it though. I love it. I'm glad and I'm thankful that he laid out the platform that he laid out. And I get to speak to our sister, Miss Rita, in regards to a global reclamation space. Because my topic is the brutal truth. And the brutal truth begins with how we see ourselves. How do you see yourself? What story are you telling yourself? How that begins in your mind and how that mind or that mindset begins to have you set in place or fixed or stuck in a place where you can no longer grow. So we've been fed a healthy diet of disinformation and misinformation in regards to self. The brutal truth is all of these heroes and sheroes that they have presented us with, a vast majority of them are people that they paid and to push in front of us. So we're not looking internally. We don't even get the benefit of looking through our family history because they give you somebody to look at. They give you somebody to grandize. They give you someone to idolize. You don't even have the position or wherewithal to make an informed decision based off the information of your own family. So if they told us about the mother continent of Africa, they fed us negative imagery. And if they told the mother continent about us, they fed them negative imagery. So the mind job that is done externally affects the psycho-spiritual space of us internally. So in that space of brutal truth, we're dealing with a space of global reclamation. So in the space of global reclamation, it begins with the story that we tell ourselves. And if you don't have the proper information, if you don't have the guidance, if you don't have any of those things, you're walking into the situation uninformed. You're going to the situation, as the scripture says, a fool and come out a bigger fool. So when we deal with the brutal truth of it, we have to deal with those things in that text. And when we deal with that from that vantage point or that context, we have to deal with some of the things that are very ugly. So the brutal truth is we have a trauma bond with suffering. And that suffering is something that Teton just spoke to. We have a trauma bond with suffering, and we have a cycle of addiction and abuse in regards to that. So if we're looking at a holistic future that is righteous and true for our family, we have to deal with the aspects of those deficits that exist. The emotional deficits, the spiritual deficits, the physical deficits, all of those aspects of those ones who have wronged us, who look like us. And oftentimes, it is the ones that are closest to us that are very brutal in regards to that. And that's one of those brutal truths. We cannot rise as a family. I won't even get into a nation. We cannot rise as a family until we address those concerns, because we have a cycle of mistrust that exists. So this becomes our history, past, present, and future. If we're fixed in that space or that ideology, we have to begin to remove those who have done wrong and who have done evil in that regard in order to wipe that slate out of the way and then begin the space of reclamation, a space of reconciliation, and that space of healing. So all of the concepts that are coming up today in regards to what we're discussing this aspect for a better future for our families, because families build community and community builds society and society builds nation. You're not going to sit together with family members who have wronged you, who have berated you, who have done things to you emotionally, physically, and mentally, and say, oh, okay, let's put this plan together for our future. You don't want a future with them. So until these things are addressed, until these mindsets and these actions are called to account and we're able to reconcile, the healing process won't begin. My mother dedicated all of her life to helping people heal through the maladies of herbs and the science of iridology. She could look into your eyes and tell you whatever was ailing key systems of your body, past, present, future. She was able to determine that space of inherited weakness and then the degree to which those key systems of the body were failing you, and prescribe you a prescription for this affliction. And she dedicated her life. She was her first patient herself. She began to work on herself to begin to heal herself. And then I was born, and she had to do it again. My nephew Judah, after me, he was born. So she was already prepared. So her work, like the Bible said, charity began at home. So her work of healing began on herself, and then on her child, and then on her grandchild. But the world got a benefit and increase based off of the things she was studying and learning, and how God guided her hand in that regard to know what it means to find someone ailing and to be a good shepherd, to be a good shepherd of wellness, to be a good shepherd of reconciliation, to be a good shepherd of wholeness, because we're having a holistic reformation across the globe. And as Titan was mentioning earlier, it begins in your mind. If you think that you're sick, your body starts to respond to that divine command. So if you think that you are a victim, you will begin to be a professional victim and victimizer based off of that mindset. So that set is at war with you to keep you stuck in a position where you will no longer look to yourself as the hero or the hero. So what you are supposed to see in the society is supposed to reflect what's in your family dynamic. My father, on the other end, my father was one, at Titan's father, revolutionary out in the street. And we caught the sting of the lash of what it meant to stand up for people who could disregard you at a moment's notice. My father sacrificed his relationship with me based off of his relationship with the people, with the space of liberation. So my father became a father figure in regards to the struggle and the revolution, but I didn't get the benefit of the father in the home because my father was out on his mission. So in this space, we have to find this commonality of, if charity begins at home, how much more of a benefit we would be if we're dealing with things from a healthy vantage point and we have healthy relation, healthy communication with one another to be able to express those things that are ailing us and come up with a remedy as a collective, as a family. If everyone did that, it wouldn't be no need for nobody to be out in the street. Everybody would be at home. So this becomes a space in regards to documenting and sharing righteous stories so that the people who are gleaning from these particular stories can look within and be confirmed, look within and be affirmed. So they're not looking for outside validation or adopting someone else's foreign culture or ideology that becomes contrary to what they learned at home. And the last thing I'll say is that we decide how tomorrow looks. We decide how tomorrow looks. No one else has the ability or capability to be able to shape and mold our reality other than us. It begins with who we are, it begins with the stories we tell ourselves, and it begins with the mindset and will that exists within us for our future. So thank you, Dr. UR. Thank you to the panelists for an opportunity to be able to share and convey a short message to the family.
I'm just going to say, I'm not going to say wow, wow again. I think I say wow, wow so much. That's it right there. I think, I don't have the sound effects, but I think that's it right there. Like it's important to be real. And yes, the brutal truth, sometimes it is just that it's brutal, but it's the refining. It's in that space that we're able to actually identify, connect with ourselves, and birth what's supposed to come out of us. You spoke about so many things, even the birthing process with your own mom and the life and how you saw it in different ways she had to heal herself and what that looks like. And I can't wait to get to the Q&A, to hear more about the dynamics of the sacrifice made for in the home parenting versus being a part of the community. And what does that mean for someone if you can't be in the home and to have to be in the community? What are those things? I'm super excited for the Q&A. I appreciate your share and your, again, just the passion behind it, your truth behind it. It's very evident when you can tell when someone walks it, talks it, and breathes it. And I appreciate that for you being consistent in this build and for me being able to be connected with you. Thank you again, my good brother, Knowledge Born Allah. And I'm going to go right into it because I want the Q&A to really, birth what we want to forge forward. And that's really moving us to the next space. But we're going to go into the educational landscape because it has to have a start. And what we've been told, we've heard from Tea Time, we've heard from Rita, we've heard from Knowledge that this started with a narrative. And who's telling us this narrative? Somebody told you that. And I asked this question. I've done this case study. Who told you that? And why did you believe them? And how are we edified and educated? So we're going to hear from Dr. Tremanisha Lamy, President and CEO of Next Up, with 25 years of youth development, pre-K through graduate school. Dr. Lamy, you have the floor, my beautiful sister.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here with all the panelists and all of you. Thank you for the invitation, Dr. UR, for this Black History celebration. So I was asked to focus today on history is now, but I also wanted to add that our story is telling. The image there that you see first up on the screen is from a book by Daniel Taylor called Tell Me a Story. And that book explores the life and shaping of power that comes with telling our story, the healing power that's deep within that. You can go to the next slide. So when we look back at our history and some of the things that we know, that first image at the top is of 6-year-old Ruby Bridges in New Orleans, Louisiana, as she is being ushered by U.S. Marshals desegregating schools in Louisiana. But I think that that's a really telling picture. It's one that we've seen a lot throughout our history. But if you look at the bottom corner, you see what happened prior to that school desegregation. Also another telling story. A Black man, a Black teacher in front of a classroom full of all Black students, telling them their history and also speaking life into them. And oftentimes, I think over the years, we've lost a little bit of that, being able to tell our own story, know our own story, and begin to shape our own narrative. You can go to the next slide. So what's happening now? What's happening now throughout our country, and how is it impacting education overall? This is just a glimpse of some of the things that are going on. We know within this new current government administration, there have been dramatic cuts to education. There's been 13% reduction in the Department of Education. Folks are being shifted around, moved around. Programs that were set and designed to help and assist people of color have also been shifted or cut or frozen. We're expecting and anticipating huge cuts to programs like TRIO, McNair, Talent Search, Upward Bound, which helped to make sure that young people of color had access, especially first-generation students, had access to quality education and were able to thrive in schools. And now those programs are under threat, under the guise of we must get rid of, or we must ban what Dr. UR called earlier DEI, right? So the fear and the threat of DEI, which actually stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Next slide. So with everything that's happening, we're seeing books are being banned across the country, banned throughout the United States. And when we look at some of the books that are being banned, more touching home to the Black history experience, you can go to the next slide. There are a lot of books like 1619, like The Bluest Eye, like Beloved, that are also being threat. Why is this so important? Well, number one, numerous books are eliminated in schools, right? And so we know that we need to be conscious of the books that are being eliminated. But 30% of those books currently being banned include characters of color. They include Black authors. And then 8 to 9% of those, the Black history is only taught in schools. So when you think about history overall that's taught in school, and only 8 to 9% of that actually being Black history, we have to understand that that's currently where we are. And then when you ban those books, that's 30% of only that 8 to 9%. And that's a historical movement to push and erase history, the history of our past, as well as telling our young people who they can be in their future. You can't dream of something you've never seen or heard before. So what stories are being erased? Stories like Black Wall Street. I remember having a conversation with an ally of ours who was telling me that she had never heard of Black Wall Street. She didn't know about the 600 businesses. She didn't know about the 21 churches, or that it took from 36 to 100 times, I think they used to say, for a single dollar to actually leave the community. Single dollar circulated in Black Wall Street 36 to 100 times before it left the community, because Blacks were giving back to their community. They were pouring into their community, and they were thriving historically, not only in this country, but traveling abroad. And because of that, folks were fearful. And there was a lot of threat that was also faced this community. Go to the next slide. So not only she didn't know about Black Wall Street, she also didn't know that in 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Black Wall Street was bombed. And that was the first time, one of the first times in U.S. history, that the United States actually bombed their own country, their own citizens on U.S. land. That history had actually been trapped, hidden, and that wasn't really even placed into the state history books and records in Tulsa, Oklahoma until 1996. So that's within our lifetime. So for years, a lot of people, unless you dug deep, unless you heard the stories of the ancestors, you didn't even know about Black Wall Street. Next slide. When we think about the history that's being erased, we also need to think about how it plays into what we know and what we don't know about what's happening right now in our communities. So things like the real estate exploitation that took place in the past, and how it played a significant role in producing modern day ghettos and poverty within our inner city communities throughout. Next slide. And when you think about that, there's also the importance of bills like the GI Bill, which was promised to millions of Blacks veterans after World War II. So let's get this straight now. They fought for their country. They were promised access to the GI Bill. They came home wanting to buy houses and were not able to. So when we think about, once again, that dollar and how it can circulate and how it can grow and thrive in the community, and then being denied access to housing. And you think about how other folks came home after World War II as veterans and fought side by side with them, but they were able to purchase houses. They were able to create generational wealth for themselves and their family. That had a huge impact on the housing crisis that we're facing right now today. Next slide. So what's happening now? What do we see throughout? Where are the inspiration? Where's their hope? So this is just one of many stories of folks understanding, knowing, seeking, and learning the history, and also making sure that the future is brighter for their family. We talked earlier about the power of the family and how everything starts with community. Well, this Black family closed a 7-figure real estate deal. And what they did was they wanted to recreate modern day Black Wall Street in Mississippi. We also see in New Market, Atlanta, New Market, Black Wall Street, where there's Black owned businesses where you can kind of come and purchase and buy and learn about Black owned businesses in Atlanta. So throughout the community, there's a number of investments now of Blacks coming together, pooling together, understanding Black Wall Street and the power that it had made historically within this country and for families, and then also trying to restore that and reclaim the land and also reclaim generational wealth for their families. Next slide. When we think about history overall, I always like to say that, it's not just about, us reading history in books, although I love books, of course. But we also have to remember that we've always told our story. So when the books are being banned and when things are being pushed aside and policies are being implemented, we need to begin to think through how we're also sharing our story and making sure that it's shared down through the generations. And so this picture here is of West African griots. And one of the things that they used to always do was they told stories. They made sure that history was told within stories, through song, through music, through dance. They made sure that the communities knew about the history. And that's our call and our calling for today. Next slide. And what happens when history is told? Well, one of the things that we know are Black children who are taught true history through African American history perform drastically better in schools than their counterparts. And that's from various studies that have been done. Because they develop self-love and because they develop self-confidence, they're able to thrive. There should be another piece of that slide coming up. Okay. So I'll speak to that piece that didn't come up properly. So we need to begin to invest in our communities. We need to begin to invest in our young people. We need to begin to serve as mentors. We need to begin to serve within community, volunteering, making sure that young people see us, making sure that they know that they also can enter into spaces and rooms, that they are called to be in those rooms. And we need to make sure that we not only know our history, that we not only invest in our history, that we embrace it. I saw somewhere a cool quote as I was looking through things throughout this month, that Black history is our culture. Black history is a lifestyle. And I think we need to make sure that our history begins to resonate and live on today as a lifestyle, living, breathing, walking lifestyle. We are constantly on a day-to-day basis making and creating history. So these are some of the notable Black history figures that we know now. On one side, you have, of course, the Obamas, everybody knows and loves just by looking at their faces. You have a lot of notable history, people that have made significant contributions to history in the middle. And you have Kamala Harris and you have Jasmine Crockett on the far left, my far left, I guess it's your far right. And they made significant changes and impacts throughout the year that have helped to kind of shape and reshape our narrative. But there's also folks that we don't hear of, that we need to know and tell their stories as well. Next slide. So these are some images of what Blacks were doing and how they were engaged during Reconstruction. A lot of people don't want us to know that Blacks did have power during Reconstruction. And so there are folks that are also fighting to tell that story as well, and teaching about Reconstruction. And so this image here is from Zen Education Project. And I encourage you all to definitely look into how they're beginning to restore the history and save it as these books are being eliminated and as schools are becoming more and more privatized and there's a push out from public education. There are people that are investing their time and energy in making sure that our history is stored, is restored, and lives on. Next slide. And when our young people know our history, they're able to act in ways and with pride, but also embracing who their true identity is. So the image here of this young lady shows a young person from a youth development program in New Jersey. And one of the things that they were able to do was to band together and actually lower the voting rights age for a school board election in the state of New Jersey, in the state of New Jersey, through advocacy efforts. They also went around throughout the city of Newark to make sure that youth were registered to vote, because they know the power of our vote and they know that historically people have fought for that power. And then the other picture and image there is from the Knownness of Reparations, a document, and it's created in New Jersey by the Reparations Council. And that report actually outlines step-by-step bullet points on things that we need to do now to make sure that there's reparations. And it's going to take shape in different forms right now, as we're looking at Black health, as we're looking at Black housing, as we're looking at Black education, and what it means to making sure that we don't make sure that history doesn't negatively repeat itself, but that we're acknowledging our past, but embracing our future in a way that creates space and empowers not only the young people, but that are here right now, but future generations to come. Next slide. This is another effort by the Zen Education Project. I just encourage you all, I know we're short on time, but I encourage you all definitely look into it. They are also fighting to make sure that what they call is like legalizing Black education. And what they're saying there is like DEI is under threat. Folks are saying take out this, ban this book, ban that book. But Black history shouldn't be something that's taught on the side. Black education shouldn't be something that's taught on the side, especially in this country. History now also means that it's our story. Black history, her story, it's our story. And we need to make sure that we get more than 8 to 9% in a history book or in a history class, because Black people have been so influential in not only creating this country and bringing it to where it is today, but making sure that future generations have access, whether they are Black or from other groups of color, have access in ways that they did not. As we're moving forward, I encourage us all to move from history to understanding her story, which includes the inclusion of Black women. I know we're about to enter into Black History Month. Dr. UR could not leave without acknowledging that. But making sure that we're also putting all of those pieces together to tell our story, our collective story. So when a young person comes up to us and says, tell me a story, we can tell them a powerful story, a story about our history, a story about the multiple possibilities that exist for them in the future and all the ways that they can grow and thrive. If you did it before, you can do it again. And I know that that is something that we want to make sure that our young people know and understand, that they stand on the backs of wisdom, of people that are strong or resilient, not only the historical figures that we lift up and we see often, but those folks that we may not know or remember all of their names. So it's important for us to make sure we say their names, that we tell their stories, and that we speak it to one another as we embrace our history. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Pew, pew, pew. I need a sound. I see Street Magic is here with us in the listening section as a participant. He usually does the pew, 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 pew. So I appreciate everything that you shared. God said, ask and you shall receive, just like that. Just like that. I appreciate that. Thank you, my good brother Knowledge. God says, ask and you shall be given. And before we go into the panel, I'm going to give a piece of what I'd like to share, but I want to speak to something Dr. Lammy said. She said that there are attacks, there have been attacks, but somehow or another, we still in here showing up. And I have a thought that, you know, I sit in different conversations a lot. Most of you all know me affectionately and professionally as Dr. Yar Covered, right? And I sit in a lot of these spaces, be it audio space, boardroom space, round table discussions, masterminds. Oh my goodness, so many. And there's a narrative or rhetoric that is suggesting, what are we doing? What is the melanated American doing? They're not doing anything. And I'll even hear folks that come from immigrants that come, you know, that chose to be here, ask what y'all doing, or have this expectation that we're supposed to do something. And it's interesting that they don't recognize what you just mentioned, Dr. Lammy, when you said there was plenty of melanated Americans in the construction of this United States of America. And it's unfortunate that only 8%, I think I heard you say, of our story is, you know, shared in the way that all of the other history is shared, because people don't realize that American history is our history. They're looking for some specialized history. To Teton's point, you know, the sky is not falling. We've been here. To Knowledge's point, we're home. Some of us are home, and we need to recognize it as such. And some need to do, you know, go back home to your family line before you start going out on a, you know, tangent with a bullhorn, or you're trying to go and save the community and sacrificing so much. Make sure home is established. You know, when I think about these things, and you mentioned some of the books that are under attack, I can't help myself. We have I mean, that was such a scholarly approach, and just to transition into, like I said, this next space of just appreciation. Our Good Brother Knowledge Born Online not only has one, but he has several books, and these are ebooks. When I say they are phenomenal, you all may or may not know. I took my daughter out of school, public school, 7th grade, and I homeschooled her. And I homeschooled her from 7th grade to 11th grade. When my Good Brother Knowledge established these books and published these books, the first thing I did was incorporated it into the curriculum. I homeschooled my daughter from 7th grade to 11th grade. Her first and only year of high school is this current year, where she's a senior, National Honor Society inductee, several full rides to several universities, some including St. Mary's, St. Peter's, Montclair State, Rutgers University, just to name a few, because there are more. Why am I saying that? Because some people fear going home. Some people don't trust themselves. We spoke about some of the trust earlier. Some people are not aware that you have everything you need. So, yes, you can dispel the narrative rhetoric about us not having patience with our children. We just heard an educator say not only are we educating children, but we're doing it in school time and out of school time. So we can have patience with our children. We can have quality time with our children. And we have the means to educate them in ways that they speak to their actual true history. A half truth is a whole lie. You're going to hear me say it over and over and over and over again, because for me, a lot of what we suffer from in the, when we think about the lack of identity or crisis of identity, is because, like Knowledge said earlier, we don't have the full truth. We need the whole truth. So a half truth is a whole lie. And we look at that even with Dr. Lammy just mentioned, it is her story and his story that makes it whole. So yes, I'm glad you brought out that book and shared it. And I want to just note again to the books that my good brother Knowledge has. One is directly attributed to women, but the first series or volume, let me say, is Stories of Black Entrepreneurs Building a Better Future. Volume 2 is the one that I mentioned about the women that we celebrated, we use as a part of our celebration coming in March. Which is tomorrow. We start our Women's History Month celebrations. You have the 100 Inspiring Black Women Who Changed the World. Volume 3, Black Revolutionary Leaders from Africa to America. Volume 4, Warriors for Freedom, Black Liberators from Around the Globe. 5, Empowering Minds, the Black Innovators Who Transform STEAM. Sorry about that. And there are so many, and I'm sure he's going to do a better job of actually articulating the power behind these books. But the volumes speak volume, and it's important to know that. With that all being said, now I want to just thank everyone again for being here. I'm not going to be before you much longer. We did start a little behind time, so hopefully those of you who are tuned in don't mind staying with us again, because we want you to ask questions. We want to have a Q&A, but I want to share this powerful information because you are in fact the currency that these frequencies are riding up along on. All of this build, all of this movement, it is because of us. We are the human resource. And we say it, but do we truly understand it? Do we truly believe it? Do we know it? So I do have a quick presentation that I want to share. And it's because, again, there are powerful tools out here that we need to be aware of, that we need to not just be aware of, but we also need to have access to. And this is just a short presentation of how I'm going to share that information. I do have like slides with illustrations and all of those things, but I would just implore you to schedule a one-on-one consultation for more of that and more of something more streamlined to you and what it is you and your family are wanting to do. But I want to share quickly. There's a quote that Warren Buffett says, and I'm sure we've all heard it before. If your salary is your only source of income, then you are one step away from poverty. And with that, we know that a lot of us are the human resource of this entire system. We work, and before we pay ourselves, our taxes are taken out. I had a recent client that I was speaking to, and they made well over $100,000. And when they brought their checks home, I mean, they looked like you might as well have had two McDonald's jobs, or a salary of a McDonald's worker. And that's not to slight the McDonald's worker at all. It's to say that, are you structured properly? Because whether you're the McDonald's worker or not, if any other sort of worker that's receiving whatever your due is, that's what you should be taking home. And it's because of the lack of knowledge, miseducation, misinformation, as we all heard, in all of these different areas. You got miseducation and representation in the social aspect and economic aspect, the political aspect, the education, and of course, the world of finance. A lot of it is not even understood by a lot of people. I mean, there is so much confusion and things like that that goes on in this space of finance. So I'm going to talk to you really briefly about the power of knowledge, choice, and implementation. I'm speaking to you in this regard, not as Dr. You are covered, the conversationalist, but I'm putting on my Dr. You are covered, the senior manager with Xperia Financial Group, the economic empowerment advocate, the public speaker, the mother, the person that is coming just out of love. This is part of my mission. It is in me, like T-Time mentioned earlier, not upon me, okay? Like it is in me, not on me. So let's again talk about the confusion and the system overload as we move forward, right? There's such an information overload that people are thinking, go ahead. People are thinking that they are being informed, not recognizing that the overload of information is just being, my good brother Baba says, you are drowning in information. So we're talking about navigating the complexities of the financial decisions, which we know can lead to overwhelm and confusion. And that is the present state. As we talk about this present, you're not overwhelmed like last year's overwhelmed. No, it is not tomorrow. It's in the moment. You are overwhelmed. You are in confusion, some to the point of analysis paralysis. And it is essential for us to sift through this. We talked about, I think T-Time talked about going deep and wide with the matters of the heart. It's important to take those moments of reality checks, of clearing through the noise and the chaos to focus on understanding key concepts that transform information into actionable wisdom that will empower you, that empowers you, and that will continue to empower you in managing your estate. And why am I using estate? And you're not just managing your estate, but managing your estate effectively. But why am I using the state? I'm using the state because when you transition from here, from this earth, guess what this same system refers to you as? The system refers to you as in the state, and most folks don't catch it. They don't see the connection in that. You are the estate. So, this is something, okay, you can move on. This is something that I want to bring truth to power, bring light to, because while we know the system tells us to work 40 hours, the unfortunate part is that about 40% of all of what you work for is all you're going to retire with. And you have less than 40 years, unfortunately, to enjoy even that of which you have stored up to retire if you go by the system. If you do not decide to adhere to not just information, but to gain the knowledge. And then not just to gain the knowledge, but to implement the knowledge, to build into wisdom, that you can move this not just into awareness or like what they say, the woke culture, but to move into moving the needle forward, implementation, that action. That's what's important. And to do that, to know that, you have to first understand that you are currency. You are the driving force. You are the power. You are the estate in this. And to do what's necessary within the system, learning the tools, learning the rules, learning the players, understanding the language, understanding the time stamps and the dates that matter in this system. These are all things that are very, very important. So you have to manage your estate by understanding life insurance with living benefits and your financial worth and planning your estate. These are tools in this system. These are the languages, the verbiage in this system that we operate in. We just aren't aware. Now, when I talk about life insurance with living benefits, I'm talking about a tax code. So it's not like I'm just talking about go buy a product. I don't sell life insurance. Unfortunately, there are tons of agents who do that may not even concern themselves enough to know what the tool is they're selling may be. But me, I don't sell life insurance because I went and I've investigated and I've learned so much more. It's beyond just being a licensed professional. Yes, that's true. But I really um, delve into the implementation of how we can use this tool, like the where does this tool really fit in our practical lives. So my niche, and this is just to note it, is really to help entrepreneurs, to help individuals and families and organizations. And when I say individuals and families, I mean as an entity, as a trust, as a family trust. We'll get into that and definitely get more into it, and when you all have your consultations. But it's really to help folks understand that these tools are not new. When you hear the news broadcaster talking about these new accounts that Trump is doing, trust me, you can go back one, they're not new. These accounts have been around. There are tax codes that govern them. And life insurance is one of those many tools that we have been told a half truth about. We've been told it's death insurance. And we've been told that it's temporary. For the most part, our people, anyone that looks like us, have been targeted to only purchase term, which is a temporary policy. Now, I'm not speaking against it because there's a place for each type of policy to work and benefit a person. But it's something much greater out there. And that's going to be that policy, that index universal life policy, more specifically, because it has the living benefits. And there are other term policies and other benefits, other products that have the living benefits attached. But again, it's only temporal. So with this, if you were to, not if, when, right? When we think about our culture, we're talking about the history and how some of our folks have had bad habits. They were taught bad habits and they suffer from critical illnesses. They suffer from terminal illnesses, chronic illnesses, that if and when that were to happen, you have that death benefit while you're alive to assist you and to help you and your family move forward. So you don't have to worry about, the financial weights of this life that we know. How are you going to pay your mortgage or your rent? How are you going to take care of the car, the finance, the insurances, the debt, the retirement, education? You still have young people. There's so many things. We talked about that initial confusion space. This is where you clear up, go ahead, all of that confusion with proper structuring. And we first do that by understanding the truth of wealth, what wealth truly is. We talk about generational wealth. We talk about, being wealthy, but do we understand what that really is? So understanding true wealth and its components, and you all, for the most part, know I like mnemonics and acronyms. So of course, I would not be myself if I did not have one for the true meaning of wealth. Willingness. Remember, I noted willingness in the earlier part of this webinar, because there's so many people who separate. They leave each other. Okay. We're talking about families. We're talking about building healthy relationships. And the moment something doesn't go right, the moment there's a disagreement or there's something that really shakes the relationship, the willingness is gone. The willingness to remain committed, the willingness to submit and hear, truly see that person, truly just take in that what is being done or what is happening is not who you are, really just sit in it and commit to being there in the present. It's the willingness that we have lost sight of. We have not been taught to make sure that we're willing. I even speak on willingness in terms of accepting a compliment, accepting credit and honor. Sometimes I hear people, and I've been guilty of this myself in the past. You say, "Oh, Dr. UR, you look nice today." "Oh, not, this is nothing. This old thing." You hear, "Dr. UR, thank you so much. You helped me so much, so much." "Oh, don't worry about it." And it's a false sense of humbling. It's a false sense of being humble, when in fact, we know that we're made in the image and likeness of God, and that's not your belief, then I'm not speaking to you. But for those of us that do have that understanding, so there would be no need to minimize ourselves. And we have taken the word and all of these things and perverted it and mishandled it and manipulated it, because no, we're not supposed to be humbling ourselves to this narrative of coming under. We are humbling ourselves to God and to what he created and purposes to do. And with that comes willingness to submit one to another, as scripture says, and to hear one another, the openness to learn, not just about who we are, like we were mentioning, going back home and learning who we are. But once we know who we are and we understand that, where do we go? We learn about the financial opportunities and the systems that we are operating in. Not saying that that's, everything. It's just the way that we operate in this society. And how do we grow this society? How do we participate in being more than 8%? Voices in history moving forward. Also, E is for education, continuous pursuit of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, and financial literacy and growth. I'm going to move faster because we are pressed for time. Action. A is for action, taking steps to implement and learn financial knowledge. L is leadership. We need leadership, but not typical leadership. Dr. Lamy mentioned some of the leaders of the days of old and current day. And the only way we're going to have current day leaders moving forward is if we start to see ourselves as leaders, if we start to challenge ourselves to lead in the way that we want to point out someone else is supposed to be leading. Too often we hear, "Oh, they need to do this. We need to lobby behind this one so they do what we want to." Why aren't you just doing it? They're wanting to remove DEI. Why not just do it? And that's what we're seeing evidence of, DEI or not, we show up. So that's what this is about, that type of leadership. And then taking that and moving it forward, guiding others towards success, financial success, and independence. Trust. T is for trust. Building confidence, improving financial systems and advisors. We have to get back to the place of trusting ourselves. Yeah, I know you thought I was going to say trusting someone else, but remember I mentioned that don't believe what you see and half of what you hear. No, the devil is a liar, right? You have to learn to trust yourself. Trust that you are going to consider all of the components necessary for you to make healthy decisions. Trust that you're going to take care of this temple, that you're going to do the best for yourself, and you're going to treat and love others as you love yourself. That type of trust. Then trusting into proven systems. That systems in the household, because it has to be order. That systems in the workplace, that systems in your community, that systems in your internal system as we move on and we talk about health, but then also those that are put in positions, some teachers, some prophets, some preachers, all of that. But yeah, some people are just professionals like myself, licensed in this or certified in this or have a doctorate in this and that, because they have gone to get the insight. And even when you get to the advisor, and this is important, you trust but verify. So this is not a message to trust blindly and just jump up. No, trust but verify everything that I'm speaking to you today. Go on some of these platforms, these sites of these insurance carriers, and see what they say about themselves. Go on F&G and see if it's A rated, A plus rated, A minus. Make sure you go and vet whatever the information is. And that's with anything. That's a part of our 3C principles. Lastly, we have H for health, and that's prioritizing physical and financial wellness in life. It's important for you to be able to stand strong, be knowledgeable, be in the know, and action and going into action in order to pass the message on wholly. It's because people are just taking a bit of it. You have enough information to argue, but not to have a conversation. That's another bottom line, because it's important for us to have enough to really go deep and wide, like what T-Tom was talking about. All right, you can move on. And for us to take those efforts, that gives us now the power of choice. If we take the initiative to do those steps that we mentioned and take the information and put it into implementation, we have the power of choice. Making informed financial decisions is essential for building wealth. With the right knowledge and understanding, you can confidently navigate complex financial options, ensuring that your choices align with your goals. And to know your goals, you got to know yourself and lead to sustainable prosperity for yourself and your community. Starts with yourself, okay? So I'm sorry, my eye is really bothering me for some reason. Something's in it. But managing your estate is what follows that, directly follows that. Once you have the knowledge and the understanding, you're starting to implement. How do you do that? First and foremost, we can move forward. You're going to establish this wealth system. You're going to create multiple streams of income beyond your salary by creating your by being creative with your current income. And we talk about creative finances again. That's more when you have your uh, one-on-one, but that's in real estate. That's with ETF. So we're not saying just do this one thing. This product works because it incorporates all of these other components. Be it, your CPA, there's strategic partnerships with these folks and the brokers and the attorneys and credit specialists. There are strategic partnerships that we have that help us help people like yourselves and others establish, maintain, protect that which you have established, preserve what you have built, protect it in the way of using these tools that can't be sued. No one can come and attack it. It is not going to occur. Taxes, it is income tax free. That's another powerful key component of this. When you think about the insurance, use insurance and the legal structures like a trust to create properly structured security. And lastly, transfer that, build a generational legacy for your community. So with all of that being said, and I hope that I didn't take too much of your time, but what I said in the time that I did take is something that resonates with you, is something that you can understand, because we need understanding. And all of our getting, we have to get understanding to move forward. And that is what's going to help us implement. That's what's going to help us grow our knowledge base, our foundations and systems. You can go to the next one. Yeah, so take control of your estate today before you transition, before they have to identify you. We've been misclassified from the beginning of time to now. We've been called the Negro, called the Moor, called the this, called the that. Now we're African American. And some of us, are Black and all of these different things. But take control of your estate. Identify yourself. Know yourself. This is important. This is us making history. That's an action. This is a call to action. And for me, the call to action is simple. Challenge the rhetoric. Consider yourself and change the narrative. That's it for me in terms of this presentation that I wanted to bring forward. There's my contact information for anyone who wants to do a consultation. There are complimentary consultations because we don't have time for the games. We need people to really understand the tools that we have out there for them to use. Without any further ado, I want to welcome everyone back to the stage with me. Look at that. I didn't even have to export that time. Amazing, amazing. Welcome everyone back. I just want to say again, thank you all so much. Before I get into the Q&A, I just want to give an opportunity for everyone to have a not a last thought. That's going to be at the end, but just a last thought in terms of all of the presentations. We all presented to each other. So any thought on what you all have heard from one another? We didn't rehearse this. This is just what we brought based on our topics. I want to give a moment for you all to do that. you just come off the mic, right? I don't think anyone has to raise their hand or anything. No. All right. So there's no, look, y'all quiet. Don't get quiet now. Y'all had a lot to say during y'all little segments now. Y'all want to get quiet. Okay. No, I will not pressure you. There's so much more to discuss with that. If there are any questions, any of the audience that would like to ask a question, I'm going to go over a couple of questions that I've already prepared for the panelists, and then I want you all to be able to ask your questions. You can either put them in the chat if you don't want to, you can send them directly if you don't want to be obvious on the chat. But I think we're all good. Just put it in the chat, address the question, and direct it to whomever it is tasked to. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to ask the entire panel to answer this first question. This question is, what is the single most important lesson from Black history that the world still has not fully learned? And what does it look like to live that lesson out loud today? We can go in the order that we presented in, or as it comes to you, can just come off and answer the question. Or I can call you out. Or I can call you out. So what is the single most important lesson from Black history that the world still has not fully learned? And what does it look like to live that lesson out loud today?
I think the lesson for me is that it's right now. We are the story that is being told. Our descendants will look back and say, what were we doing right now? How do we prepare for them? How do we make sure that we left a legacy behind? And so I think that a lot of times people think that history is so far away, and they forget it was yesterday. They forget it was this morning. And they forget that every single moment that you take, the crumbs that you leave behind are part of your history. So what's there? What are people going to say about you? And your contribution to yourself, to your family, to your community, and what type of life and legacy do you want to live?
Sounds good. Anyone else? Well, who's next? We'll all answer the question.
Okay, I'll go. So for me, it's turning all these resiliencies, achievements into building a movement that will carry us further and move generations from, stronger generation to the next generation after generation, building resiliency and also coming up with good achievements that will move us forward.
Awesome. I guess the men were saying ladies first, right? I guess that's what they were giving us. They were saying ladies first, right? Go ahead, guys.
Can you restate the question one more time?
Sure. So what is the single most important lesson from Black history that the world still has not fully learned? And what does it look like to live that lesson out loud today?
I think the greatest lesson to live out loud is the external healing that you receive as an individual. And I'm just talking from a man's perspective as it relates to Black history. A lot of times we're functioning with a lot of knowledge, a lot of strength, but the resiliency and the tried by fire is not just about white people. I think that as men, we have to get to a place of understanding that in order for us to be successful in building the foundation for our history, and I'm talking about the history of those that look like you, first and foremost, your community, your family, we have to get an upgrade. We have to get past thinking that we are victims. We have to get past believing a lie. We got to get past thinking that, the sky is constantly falling and Black men and Black women are just so desperately in trouble. We have to become who we are, who we say we are, the pride we are as a people. We have to exist within us. And that framework has to be built within us first so that we can distribute that strength into our children, into our families. And I think that's history. When I think about your children celebrating the accomplishments of their mother and how great their mother was and the hours that they worked, the mother worked, and the sacrifices that they made, and the children take what they saw what their mother made and they add to it. They learn the lessons and how to communicate and be emotionally regulated. And they learn how to understand that there is value in therapy. There is value in getting outside and learning how to
Amen.
you understand what I'm saying? So I just think those lessons have been learned personally from me, and being able to teach my children and teach my daughter that I don't have to carry the weight. And I don't got to put as my wife would say, I don't have to put myself on fire to keep somebody else from burning.
Mm.
So that's my thoughts on that one.
Wow. All right, my good brother Knowledge.
I got caught up again. You understand what I'm saying? I was like, I'm gonna go before tea time.
You got to be quicker than that.
Right. Tea time hand me that baton, and I'm gonna run the race.
Yeah.
In Matthew chapter 9, verse 35 to 38, Christ was talking to the people, and he said that the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So that means that the part of the whole has to do the work now that benefits everyone. So the harvest is plentiful. It's enough for everybody. It's abundant, right? The earth gives from her majesty abundance. God gives from their space abundance, right? But the laborers are few. So we are not looking at the laborers. Who qualifies to a laborer? You know, what it means to be a laborer and what that means. If we're not imbuing the people with that in regards to the future, then that's one of the lessons I think that are sorely missed. Like, you'll hear people quote it, but in the actualization of that process, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
How do you instruct the laborer for their work?
Mm-hmm.
What sort of process does it go about to identify one who has the characteristics and the necessary qualifications to be a laborer? Now, who has the set ability to be able to instruct one? What are the qualifications? What are the skills? You understand what I'm saying? So when we out there about our work, are we carrying forth the proper instruction for our labors? So the harvest is there. That means that there was a process where there was nothing. There was nothing, right? And then there's a process of planting seeds. Then there's a process of adequate sunlight and irrigation.
Mm-hmm.
But before all of that, there's a process that exists in the mind of the laborer to till the ground, to prepare the earth, to disturb the earth in a way so it can be transformed. So if we're looking at all of these aspects, every one of these aspects has to have due regard. So the laborer must be in the right mind frame in order to approach the labor. If they're looking at this labor as painstaking or a chore, then that's going to be the result of the harvest. But if the harvest is plentiful, that means that everything that's involved in the process understood its role, and not only did they perform their role, they exceeded their role.
Mm.
So when you plant the seeds, automatically you have to have a mindset of patience, compassion, and care. You're walking this earth. You transform this earth. Beneath this earth, it looked and it appeared one kind of way. It might have looked desolate. Right under that is useful land. So you planting these seeds, and you're planting them in a manner, but you don't determine the hour that they begin to bear fruit.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to approach that situation as you're walking this earth every day in commune with her, that the seeds that you planted are going to bear fruit. And know that before you ever see the fruit, There are weeds. There are weeds that come up. And those weeds come up, and we look at the weeds, and oftentimes we curse the weeds, but the weed is proof that of life.
Mm-hmm.
The weed comes as a test to the seed. So if the weed sprouts up, that's life there. It's presence of life. So it grows as a marker that there's life that's there. So now it's going through the space of gestation, meaning it's growing in the womb, like our narratives and our stories are growing in our mind. So if you're feeding that negative energy or negative resonance, that's what's growing in gestation in your mind. But when we get to the harvest is something for the collective to enjoy based off of the fruits of the labor. But the laborer still remembers that in a couple of days, they have to go back out and start the process all over again.
Do it all over again.
So the harvest is proof of concept. The harvest is proof of life. The harvest is proof of laudable efforts. The harvest is proof of the decree that exists with that contract between heaven and earth, right? As above, so below. As within, so without. That sort of connection and connectivity. So if you have this connection to your story, you're writing the story, or you're living the story, or you're following divine instruction with the mind frame of the harvest and working backwards, and not focusing on the painstaking labor, but the harvest.
Mm-hmm.
The bountiful harvest. The harvest is for the people that didn't even know they needed something to eat.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So Christ is saying in this story right here that the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. If you got all of the laborers together and painted in their mind what this labor was for, so they could see the harvest, it would be more laborers. So we have to be able to place into the minds and the hearts of our young people that this is not a chore. Learning about themselves is not a chore. We're not presenting this reading to them and they're bogged down with this thing like it's a job. We have to make it attractive and powerful so that they see the harvest in their mind and they reap the bountiful harvest and they continue on the work because they've seen the harvest. They've seen the proof of it. So with everything that was shared, if we don't make these things relatable, if we can't take a masterful story by a mastermind and make it palatable for the people, then it's just some words that fly off the tongue. You understand what I'm saying? For God so loved the world, we got to understand what that process is, what that love meant, and what the world is, and the world that we're creating in regards to our future. So I want to deposit that in there real quick in regards to having a mindset of going from the laborer to the harvest, and from the harvest back to the laborer, and what that means in connectivity.
I mean, good Lord, this is what I have had for some years. So y'all just getting a little bit. I get it all the time. I'm super excited, and that's why, because the laborers are few, but the harvest is plenty. And it's all a work, but it's about the way you conceptualize labor and work and harvest, and if it carries to be heavy burden or light or easy yoke or not. And I'm excited that I can choose a light burden and easy yoke, because the work got to be done. We have to do the work. So I appreciate all of those responses. Hopefully, everyone in the audience was able to really hear the truth about what was being said in that. There's something that we have yet to really grasp. And if you don't understand your duty in order to be the laborer, to help others reach that harvest that you're assigned to, because we're all laborers assigned to different tasks. We talked about different landscapes here. We're laboring in education. We're laboring in media and political platforms and financial. We're laboring. These things are on repeat, and we're not empty. We're not pouring from an empty cup. because we understand that concept that he just says. So many don't understand, have not even considered. So no, I'm not tired of saying it. I say it and I'm rejuvenated by saying it. And I'm even more so rejuvenated when I hear what others are saying about the path that they're supposed to be in. And they stand in that same vein, they stand in that same spirit of pouring and planting and planting and pouring, because you got to go back and do it again. So after you receive the harvest, and receiving the harvest in itself is a job. They don't talk about that, but you got to have the sack and the saddle and pluck, and you got to pick them things up. They got to be moved to, and then you got to distribute, right? That's duplication. You got to go and pour into someone else so they duplicate it. That's that nourishment that they get. So I mean, thank you all so much. That is such a dynamic way of, answering that question, each and every one of you. I'm going to go ahead to the other questions. There's 2 questions for each panelist individually. And, answer how you see fit. There's no box around you, right? We are making history. This is not to be the typical webinar. This is not to be what you normally do. We have to get out of that. We have to stop, comparing ourselves and really holding ourselves to someone else's narratives, to someone else's standard, when we know that we really receive it this way. There are some people who would say if they ain't got that beating, they wouldn't have got it. Now, I don't all the way agree with that, but there's some people who are like, I needed that beating. You know what I mean? So there's a way that we know we have to communicate with each other, but we keep trying to frame ourselves and box ourselves in this one particular way. It's not about us not being professional. That's not it. Because professionalism is not on the line. We show up the way we show up. We are true to ourselves. But it also is to say that I don't have to articulate myself or present myself as someone else. I'm going to present myself as who I truly am and dispel the rhetoric against that. So with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and come to you, Rita. And when you shared your testimony of how you learned Black history. So my question to you, as a Ghanaian woman who has lived in America for 30 years or more, right? Your relationship with Black history was not inherited. It was discovered. So what, in your own words, what was the moment, the lesson, or the truth that stopped you in your tracks and made you realize that history, that this history is also yours to carry?
So you are right. Traveling all the way from Africa here, Black history was not something that I thought I was part of. But like you're saying, I'm saying as well, when I got here, I realized that the fight is a common fight. So one particular incident, like I can't really lay my hand on any particular incident, but what I'm thinking is sometimes it's the discrimination. Sometimes it's the different struggles that we go through. Sometimes it's the misunderstanding. So all of that becomes like you feel the Black, struggle. So with that, yeah, those were the struggles that made me realize that I'm part of the Black tapestry, the rich history that our ancestors, if I may say, had to lay for us that we can go through. And then with that, we can come up with an opportunity that we can forge forward.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I appreciate that. There was a moment, and I think that for those of our sisters and brothers from other areas, so from across, the pond, because I even communicate and I collaborate with some that are in the UK and everything, and those that are on the continent that come over, it's important to think about it and conceptualize not being a consumer, but being a product. I was in the session earlier before we started this, and the speaker mentioned he's from Africa. He mentioned to the room why he's collaborating with the melanated Americans. He said that he is not going to be a consumer anymore. He's going to be a producer. He's going to make sure that the grass is green here where he is first. And that's important because that's the one that, I didn't answer that first question, but this is the one thing that I don't think that, the world has really understood is we say, come here, but you're divided. And Rita and I, we've had extensive conversations about that divided, that unsettled. I'm here, but my mind and my heart is somewhere else. That's what this country has been built on. You can't say colonizer and not understand that something else has interrupted you. Even when I talk about the world of finance, right? One of the things I say about this product and why it's so powerful is because it's uninterrupted compound and interest. Well, that compound it doesn't have to be finance. It could be our emotional state. It could be what we call ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, what we listen to, what we accept. If it's on repeat, if it's consistent, if it's continuing, it's just constant, you're not going to be, you are this, you oppress, you slavery, you a lie. That's what I'm gonna say. You a lie. The truth is not in you. Okay, it's a no for me. And sometimes you just have to understand that you have to put on your face mask. T-Town was mentioning we're in a plane and that plane is going down. Yes, it is selfishness for you to think that you could save the world and not consider yourself. You are doing it out of order. It says to love yourself, that 2-letter word, as you love your neighbor. First and foremost, loving God with all your heart and mind, but that isn't itself loving yourself. So you're going to put that mask on yourself so that you can breathe. And if you needed to help someone, even if they were to lose consciousness, you can help them if you have your means of breathing. But if not, you're both gone or you're all gone. So it has to be where we identify that it's for us to pick up our cross and walk. It's for us to be the laborers so that the harvest don't be stifled. I know I used to talk about stifle here. It can't be stifle. It has to be plentiful, abundant. So thank you, Rita, for that. The next question I'm going to ask is going to go into tea time. Well, let me ask you another question, Rita. I have two for you. Let me ask you another question. You work daily, you said, with helping families avoid financial loss and build dependable income. How does understanding the deliberate economic exclusions woven into Black history sharpen your urgency of the work that you do? How does it, do you knowing now the system, you being aware of how the system does cripple and has always put, the Black American or the melanated American in a particular or peculiar spot when we think about systemic racism? With that, not even with that being a challenge, but even understanding how do you make that an urgent part of the work you do, and what financial tools and strategy do you use, or that you would hope for everyone in every family to implement if they're hearing you tonight?
So, like you said, we're always at a disadvantage, right? They burn down, they push down everything. So using the financial, leveraging the financial strategies to build legacies for our family. So you could utilize anything that can build a good legacy for the family, pass it from generation to generation. You could also utilize strong financial understanding, the literacy part of it, also to build. So it's almost like you can start from anywhere, any angle, because as a people, we've always not have the right information. So for part of my job is to also educate the family, let them know where to start, how to protect themselves, how to build legacies, how to even build wealth. So we sit you down and then we draw a plan, knowing what your goal is. We can help you out so that you can build something that you can pass it on to the next generation.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Exactly what you said. We have to consider, if we were to see it, and this is an interesting way of looking at it, but if we were to see it as we all have a similar struggle, would that change the dynamic and change the narrative on how we consider each other? Right? Why do we need to hold on to my slavery was worse than yours? Why do we need worst or more or the most? There's so many aspects of how we try to validate what we're saying. If you truly understand and know what you're saying, you don't need this comparison factor. You don't need to put most and these ghost people behind it, because you don't even know most. That's the truth. So just say what it is. And if you stand on that, then let that be the case. So often it's like, oh, woe is me. Nobody had it like we had it. So now what? So now you get the prize of having it the worst. Now what? There still has to be something that's done. So whether it was worse or not becomes irrelevant, to the degree of lack of motion. If that's what you want to do, if that's what you need it for, you stay stuck, that's not going to work. We need you to move. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Tea Time Moffitt. Thank you again, Rita, for your response. And thank you, of course, for being a part of this webinar. I appreciate you. And to Tea Time, whose topic was how deep and wide. And Tea Time talked about his understandings about, the world and its view of us, and how it could try and stifle us to not go deep enough. And he talked about the matters of the heart. And I want to ask a question that's maybe a little beyond what we may have heard from you, just from your background and what I know you to do. So you move through these platforms and the boardrooms and the government chambers and different newsrooms and even classrooms. And in each space, in each of those spaces, how differently is Black history told? And in your experience, which space has been the most resistance in telling the full unfiltered truth? And emphasis on unfiltered, because you've been in government chamber. Oh no, let me not emphasize that. Go ahead.
Oh man! So the story of Black history being told in multiple spaces. Well, I have to go back to a story. Back in 1993, I was in Japan, and there was a Stars and Stripes editor who basically wrote an article stating that it's a time to put an end to Black history. Now, I'm 18 years old, 19 years old, and I'm fresh off that hip hop movement. We're wearing our medallions, and we're learning about our culture. And I had the audacity to write a 4-page letter to the editor of the military newspaper. Now, I'm a service member, and I basically gave him or her, I don't recall, a lot of commentary and a lot of history. But what I found out as I've gotten older is that you can have all the information and have all the zeal and the excitement, but when you're handling issues such as these kinds of matters, you have to be really true to what it is that you are saying, and you have to believe what it is that you're saying. Because I was in an industry or an organization that apparently, we were one. I went to foreign countries where they didn't let you in because you were an American. They didn't care about your ethnicity. The simple fact is that you came off the USSS, said USSS, right? So what I've learned is that I don't have to shrink myself in the spaces that I've gone in, from the General Assembly to doing films to working on sets to just taking my drone and flying and writing. I don't have to perform anything. I just have to be authentic to who I am, and I don't have to work harder to get ahead. I've learned that. I just have to exist with the knowledge and the education that I have obtained, because the reality is that the security in yourself is not relied on me having to perform or to prove something to a other group of people. I have gotten to a place personally that I'm getting to know me. And some of the beautiful thing is about moving in those spaces that you don't have to say a word. It is your light. And so my brother Knowledge mentioned earlier, he says, he went to the scriptures and he shared a little bit of the text. And I'm going to say this. He says, and if I get it wrong, please be patient with me. Said, let my light show shine. My light said, let the light in me shine. Right? Not so that I can shine, so that the Creator could be glorified through my good works. So I'm not worried about where you come from, whether you came from a trailer, whether you got more money, you got economic power. I don't care if green, purple, orange, or blue. I have destiny to get to, and I can't be late. And so what I had to do, navigating through these spaces, I had to learn what my fathers and other leaders had done, the mistakes, the challenges, and I had to upgrade, right? So today, an iPhone 3, you ain't calling nobody with no iPhone 3. You ain't getting in touch with nobody with no Palm Pilot. So the information that has been presented to us in this age and time that we're living in, we are a generation of revelation, which means get in position, be in position to grow, to learn. We are commissioned to create, build, and sustain, no matter where you're working at. So fear not of the boogie woogies, because the text tells us very clearly that we wrestle not against flesh or blood, against principalities and power. There's something going on with it we can't see, and we're so consumed by what we can see. Mm-hmm. So that's why I find the victory and the discovery. And I'll leave with this: as deep as your healing and as wide as your love, right? As consistent as your discipline, as accountable as your character, build from the inside out. That's where you're going to find your victory. That's where you're going to get your strength, because greater is he that's in Teton than all this stuff that's going on, the orange, the blue, the green. I could care less, because I have destiny in me, and I know this, and I'm trying to share this, and hopefully that you feel and understand what it is that this panel is saying. There's no more excuses. The sky is not falling. We're growing. And the best way to grow is in darkness.
I have to shake my head. Woo! My goodness. Powerful, powerful. I mean, all of that and more. Snaps, clap it up, because that position in that question. And Teton didn't answer my question, y'all. Teton decided what he needed to say and what needed to be said. And I said, answer the question, however you want to. So I appreciate that, because sometimes, the world is pulling you to do something, but what you're called to do is what you have to be obedient to. What you're supposed to say and do is what you have to be obedient to. And because we want to, get through it, and I don't want anyone to feel rushed as much as possible. We all, really short on time. I'm going to just ask Teton that one question. He gave so much in that one question. I think it's okay to move and ask our good brother Knowledge. Nope, I'm not. I'm going to change it up for my good brother Knowledge, because he said on 2 times he had to come behind Teton. So I'm going to move to our Dr. Tremanisha Lamb.
Y'all going to have to stop that, man.
Look, I'm technically the one that got to say something after you, so I know what he mean when he say what he mean, okay? I'm going to say to Dr. Tremanisha Lammy, you mentioned that you spent over 25 years working with young people from pre-K to graduate school, and I know even beyond graduate school, because we had a mentorship program, and it's all types of folks that was in there, and what you do outside of the scope of work, right? We have these scopes of work, but you build on so many other spaces. But I want to ask this: when you stand in front of a room full of children today in 2026, how do you help them understand that they're not just studying history, they're not just getting a lesson in history, but they are living and making it? What does that look like in practice when you're talking to the young children?
So I'm gonna jump a little bit off too, and share with you, like, one of the things that I love to share with the young people I work with is a poem, by Marianne Williamson called "Our Deepest Fear," and I think it touches on some of the things that were said earlier. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest that glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And so I like to just remind them of who they are. And I think that when we remind them of who they are and they stop being afraid of who they are and what society thinks they are, they're able to open up the door to the multiple possibilities of all the things that they can be and they can do.
Wow, exactly. Remind them of who they are, meaning it's already there. It's not something they have to go and figure out or find or, it's there, it's in them. That's powerful. And if you just remind them, just mention that versus all of the naysaying, all of the other rhetoric, all of the other labels, who they truly are to their core. You train up a child in the way they're supposed to go, they will not depart. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Lammy, for that. I want to ask my good brother Knowledge a question. I know he got a question for me. I want to ask you a question, my good brother Knowledge. Now, as a story alchemist, someone who takes raw, unfiltered truth and transforms it into something powerful. Yeah, let's go there. Yeah, let's go there. Okay. Yes. What is the brutal truth about Black history that we as a community have been most reluctant? We see it, like Dr. Lemon was saying, we know it, we'll hear it, but where have we been most reluctant to say out loud, and why and how does our silence in it cost us?
Now I have to go out to Dr. Lammy. You understand? I'm struggling at that. You understand what I'm saying? I'm struggling at that. Okay, I thought tea time was bad. It got worse. It got worse. You understand what I'm saying?
It got worse and rough.
It got worse. So the truth the brutal truth that we struggle with the most, that we are afraid to say out loud, is that we are our own liberators. We are our own liberators. Nobody is coming to help you. The scripture says God helps those who help themselves. So if you're not helping yourself, not even God can help you, because God is not inclined to. There's no evidence, right? You don't look like you're in peril. So as long as we're running around victimizing and being professional victims, we become victimizers, right? So the Holy Quran asks the question. And in the Holy Quran, it says, which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? Which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? Now, think about this question that's being asked. The creator of all is asking man, which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? If we are our own liberators, if we find ourselves in a situation where we're telling people that we are oppressed, we forgot that there's a God being, that we composed of a God force that is there to bring us this liberation, but it costs work. It asks you for work, for evidence, right? So once you begin to be involved in your affairs, back to the labor thing, you got the proper instruction. Are we good? Okay. So which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? This is favor. What it means to be favored. What it means to be favored isn't the rosy thing that we have. With this favor comes responsibility. With this favor becomes work. With this favor becomes trial and tribulation, because in that trial and tribulation, there's a transfiguration or transformation that takes place that, like T-Tom was saying earlier, like that light shine. How do you think that light shines? That light shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not, right? So that light in that darkness has a responsibility. So the darkness has a responsibility to conceal, and the light has a responsibility to reveal. So in this favor, you conceal and reveal the favor at the same time. So the person might look at you and say, okay, this is the source, right? This is the genesis. In that space of liberation, in that space of revelation, would it still point to you and say the same thing? So the story has to be told in the story alchemy to be able to reveal those things that's in the darkness as well as the light. So that someone who hears the story, like those young people that Doc was just talking about, that she shares them, they need to be able to look within them. They need to be able to look within their own mind and not be dismayed or bogged down by their circumstance, and not allow the circumstance to dictate the outcome. These circumstances don't dictate the outcome. You dictate the outcome. And to speak back to Miss Rita real quick, Kwame Nkrumah came to America as you did. And what he saw here, what he saw amongst the people, he saw a people determined and a people of will, and he took that back to liberate the Gold Coast. He took the Gold Coast mind frame from out of the ground and put it back into the people. So now the Gold Coast became the people. The richness and the wealth of the mother continent was in its people, because it's in its people. You see what I'm saying? So a spirit of pride, a spirit of resistance, a spirit of reformation, a spirit of ever-changing instances became something that was there. So again, back to the question that the Creator of all is asking creation, which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? So, if you wanted to go do something good, Doctor, you was talking about, somebody said, oh, Doctor, you look nice today. You be like, oh, this old thing, blah, blah, I done had this for 50 years. It's a violation of God. It's a violation of God to deny this favor that is being utilized for you in this moment. Mm-hmm. So back to the fact that we are our own liberators, and I'll close with this. Your set ability to be able to lift yourself out of your circumstances is not for you alone. Your testament becomes a testimony for someone else. So as you ascend, as you evolve, as you transform, others will see that and use that as the fuel or the license or the permission for them to be able to uplift, to ascend, and to transform.
Amazing. Amazing. It's just, I don't know what to say. What can I say? Listen, right. So there was a question in the audience, and I know there's a question, there's more questions to be asked. So let me put everyone on the spot while I can and say that we're gonna have a to be continued, and I will be able to bring these people back on this platform again. Look, you got to put them on the spot sometime, people, because the pressure be on. And people want to get the insight and are interested, because this webinar so far has been going on for 2 hours, I think, and people are still here with us. And I think we have to commend them for their attention, for their time. And I want to make sure that this is not so, condensed, because nowadays, time is such a construct. You got to move, you got to do this, you got to do that. And when do you have time to actually embrace and consume fully what you've encountered or what you've experienced and what is, been laid before you? You have to really take time. So without me taking too much time, I saw there was a question in the chat from one of our audience members, and I want to ask the panel that question before we go any further. Let me see if I can find it. It says, what are we not benefiting from spiritually today that was not as accessible once upon a time? What are we not benefiting from spiritually today that was not as accessible once upon a time? Thank you, Darren Rhetoric Davis, for that question. What say y'all about this powerful question? I think Brother Knowledge just landed on it, right? He's talking about us rejecting the very favor of life in itself, the very inhale and exhale. And I'm not going to go into an answer. I want y'all to go ahead and give y'all a response because y'all know I can go on and on. So
Go ahead, Doctor.
unless y'all want me to y'all like
Doctor is ready. Dr.
Doc, go
Trey
ahead,
is ready.
they
Go
like,
ahead,
Doc,
Doc.
you got that one. You got that one. That's your question right there. Okay, yeah. As I was saying, I do want to be intentional and mindful of the time. But to what my good brother Knowledge was just saying in terms of how we respond to what God has given us, the life that God has given us, the very inhale and exhale, that in itself, not acknowledging ourselves as spirit is another form of, you know, something that's been there and we're not benefiting from it. We're not taking it as is. The understanding seems to be a little bit off because if we fully understood that, and somebody has a little feedback, if we fully understood that, we'd stand in that so we'd receive the full benefit of what that yields without having to go through a heavy burden or a whole bunch of yoke. And that's why he said his burden is easy, his yoke is light. Take my take what he's positioned or God has given, creator, what however you look at God as, because we know man had his hand in things, but there's something about spirituality and being spirit that removes whatever anybody else has to say because it's in us. It's in us. And some of that, it was not as accessible because the narrative and the words and the information was given to us in a perverted, manipulated way. So that removes some of the access and the way that we could really benefit from it in the days of old, I think, to now. We have a little bit, we have not a little bit, we're able to, and I'm not saying that none were, but we're able to have access to information that we can do the work to gain knowledge, understanding, and implement where there were other restrictions, I think, in the days of old. Thank you again for that question. As we wrap it up, I want to bring everyone back on the stage, and I think there is room for everyone to just do a closing statement, if we all can. And Dr. Tremanisha, I'll start with you.
One of the things that was coming to my mind, I was like, God is not giving us a spirit of fear, but the spirit of love and a sound mind. We have love.
Power.
Make sure that we have
power.
a sound mind. And we heard today about the idea and this belief that the sky is falling, right? But as Brother Knowledge talked to us earlier about laboring, right? You can't plant a seed unless you turn to toil. You got to do some toiling before you plant the seed, right? And just when the sky, it seems like everything's being dismantled and things are falling, that's when you get your flashlight out. That's when you start building. Because if you don't build while things are being dismantled, if you get distracted by the dust, then you're going to end up with a bigger boogeyman than you had before. So now is the time to build while things are being dismantled. When it looks like everything is in chaos, now is the time to remember to lead with love and to make sure that we have a sound mind. And now is the time to plant those seeds, not only for ourselves and the legacy of our families, but for those young people that are coming behind us.
Awesome, awesome. Any last words from Rita?
I will just conclude by saying, since our forefathers has come and done their part, and we are moving it like Dr. Lami said, history is now, right? So if history is now, we all have to do our part and move the needle further and create legacies. I always stress on legacies for our families and the generations yet to come. So we got to start planning, doing all the hard work, putting the needles where it belongs, and making sure we have that goal, and then making sure that we're moving with that, not looking back. And I like the fact that Tetron said you have to know yourself. By knowing yourself, and believing in what you believe in, that would be what will propel you to be able to achieve those goals that you set for yourself and your family and family are yet to come.
Awesome, awesome. My brother Tea Time. We're gonna have we're gonna have knowledge go. Then we got Tea Time go after knowledge. We're gonna switch it around all the way around. My good brother Knowledge.
Knowledge been killing it, and peace to you, Knowledge.
Yes.
Peace to you, T-Time. Look, I'm a reflection of y'all. I ain't seen nobody with no notes. I seen everybody speaking from spirit and in truth. So I'm thankful to be in the presence of truth seekers and truth tellers, unapologetically. So how does scripture go? Be ye not conformed. I know somebody know it. Be ye not conformed.
Be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind.
I ain't want y'all to think I was just pulling out some scripture that don't exist. You understand what I'm saying? I got evidence. I got in the space of witnesses. In the space of 3 are all things confirmed, right? So be ye not conformed. Right, you may have been in a position prior to today, on the 28th of February, 2026, where you were stifled, you were stuck, you felt unloved, you felt unappreciated, you felt a numerous amount of one of these things. But you have the power of now, as Dr. Lemmy was talking about, history in the now, the power of the now to be able to be transformed by the renewing of your mind, the renewing of your story, the renewing of your legacy, the renewing of your family. You know, Ms. Rita was just talking about legacy, honing in on legacy. What is your legacy going to be when you're no longer here to tell it? What will be told about you? What will be shared about you? When your name is mentioned, will it be a bright light that is cast or a shadow? You decide. Nobody else decides. You decide how that goes. All you need is proper instructions for your labor. If you have been laboring toward your detriment or your deficit, you could be laboring now for your benefit and for your redemption. So that redemption story can include what you learned along the way. You know, you was a prodigal son or daughter, you can come home. That was the benefit of the story of the prodigal son. The prodigal son was out there envious of what the swine was eating. And in that moment, he remembered, like, I got a home. I can go home. I can go back home. So if you don't take away anything else from what was shared today, go back home and fetch the essence of what it is. But that home has to be a place where you can grow, not just a place that you can go. So allow the alchemy of your story, as nuanced as it is, to be a redemptive tale that benefits people at every time. Just as these holy writings, and this is why I went to them, because indiscriminate of the time that they were revealed, they are still practical stories and lessons that we can utilize right now for our future. And that legacy of rich forever, rich in mind, rich in body, and rich in spirit. And I yield with that.
Amen to that. My brother Tea Time. Last words.
Oh, wow. First, man, this has been a dope conversation. I really appreciate the depth, the freedom, and the authenticity, right? I want to be able to take from this conversation and build upon it, not just on these levels of platforms, but just in my community, right? Being able to talk to not only young people, but sit with other individuals and share the experiences. I think some of the greatest experiences of life for me, as it relates to the topic, had to be at my lowest place. You know, I was a facilitator for race, culture, and ethnicity, you know, the DEI, the Diversity College, and I did it for 6 years. But one thing comes to my mind, working in that particular capacity in the city of Hampton, was that in order for us to be a community, It's not that unity is what we're lacking. I just think that our focal point is not on the main thing. And we have to keep the main thing the main thing. And what's the main thing? Well, the main thing is for us to become the history that is written in us before we were here on the foundation of the earth, right? And so through this journey of learning people, but also learning about my community. Remember, I said the community is between your ears. I am now learning to have government over my own world and my own universe. Now, what am I saying? I'm saying that I'm learning to now not be moved by all of the things that are going on around me. What is being said, what is being experienced on the news, on the internet. I am going to sit quietly with self, and I'm going to embrace this moment, because learning is so important, man. And I think we forget about why we're here. I think we come here to die. We think we come here to work 9 to 5s. We think we come here to have children. We come here to pay taxes. We come here to be on the internet. We come here to complain about the president. But we didn't come here for that. We came here for a purpose. So if I leave anything, and if I gain anything, I've added from this conversation that it is our utmost responsibility to heal. We go from the healing component, and you all know what that looks like. I don't need to teach that. We know what healing looks like, right? And then we get to that place of creation. And then we build whatever it is that you're building. You're building a family. You're building an ecosystem. You're building a network. You're building a framework. You're building a system from within. Meaning that I'm going to walk with integrity. I'm going to walk with unconditional love. I'm going to walk in humility. I'm going to walk in love. I'm going to handle people a very simple way. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you, right? And so I just think what we're looking for has to be in us. It has to reflect out of us. And I think that there's some greater days ahead. And I just want to encourage the men and women and the young people and whoever's listening. I don't care if you're 70 or 10. Sky's not falling. Sometimes we're seeing the world through a cracked lens. Sometimes we're seeing the world through a dirty lens. Sometimes we're seeing the world through a broken lens, and we can take the same picture, but the picture will be different because the matter of light and darkness that comes through that lens can change the way we see and experience our ability to create. I am Ingenious. My name is Teton Moffitt, and I'm grateful for being here and being able to become the algorithm of strength, the algorithm of truth, but ultimately the algorithm of creation. We are people of the Most High. Can you imagine what that looks like and sound like when you're looking upon your children and you see yourself? So when you look upon your community, you must see yourself. So whatever the condition of the community is, that's the condition of your heart. So the idea is, as my brother said, be not conformed to this system. Y'all know what system I'm talking about. But be ye transformed. See, we have to have a renewing of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
A renewing of our systems have to be changed out in our eating habits, our thinking habits. And all the things that come in to bypass our frontal lobe into our subconscious, to take command over our ability to process information. Instead, we absorb it and we become what we hate. A changed mind changes lives, but a mind that sits around and complain, blame, spectators, agitators, instigators, your tater people who don't want to get their hands dirty. We got to eliminate that space of people and create an environment that the workers, the farmers, the community will be transformed by what you do, but most importantly, how you demonstrate the principles and the qualities and the future that you're projecting from inside out. So be who you are. and go forth, as my good brother Clyde says, and be great, because the devil is already defeated, right? The world has already been completed, and we're standing in victory and excited about the next phase of our lives. God bless y'all, man, and be blessed, man. And it's always a great opportunity to talk about these things, and you're covered. Peace and love.
Hey, yes. All right, all right. So I appreciate everyone's last words, and yes, you are covered. All right. With that being said, I just want to leave the statement of what we are mission to do. Hopefully, I got a thumbs up, hand up. Okay, hand up.
Doc, in your final remark, I want to ask you this question. This question been right here, so I want to make sure that we get a chance to hear from you because okay, you did what you did when you did what you did. You understand what I'm saying? You spoke tonight about the difference between coming together to break bread and coming together to balance the ledger. We have mastered celebration, but are still learning community wealth building. What does that actually look like for a family, for a neighborhood, or for a network to sit down and balance their ledger together? And what tools or structures already exist in this system that we are leaving on the table?
All right. So I definitely I did put the answer there because for me it definitely looks like transparency. Things that we've heard tonight. Teton just mentioned how we showed up in honesty and trust. We trusted each other. There was no script, right? We came and we came as who we are. So the courage, the identity, and all in all, I think all in that encompasses what is it's love. And I know there's a misrepresentation of love. You know, they talk about love in so many ways, but it is all of those things that we showed up in today. So then it is to say, you know, you can grab that statement from the financial institution, review the ledger. When you think about going into your bank statement, when you think about how do you balance your book, and we weren't taught finance per se, but there was a time, maybe fifth grade or so, where we were taught here's a check, how do you write a check out, and here's how you know, for the basic balance that. But where does that fall in the line of life as the person, as the temple? That's going to be how you mature and discipline, and how disciplined you are, and how your family is going to be built in that. So there's a lot of things we were taught in terms of what would be taboo. We don't talk about finance. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about the world in the world that we live in. For a lot of it is like, don't talk about the world we live in. Let's talk about the imaginary stuff. Let's talk about entertaining things or entertainment. And let's talk about sports. Right now, if you look at FanDuel and how that thing looks, it looks like a cult almost. They have commercials where these people are just singing and on a cycle, and they're just all going into this gate, all just going into the gate. It's very interesting how that looks. So we have to sit and be intentional with our as over ourselves, of course, and as we come and we build with the family, it's bringing the young people to the table as well. You and your family internally in the household need to start. I know we talked a lot about the community and building a community, but if we don't toil that ground within ourselves first, if we don't break the ground within ourselves first, and not just break the ground, because you know, when things break, it's debris, it's unsettled. You got to clean it up. So get the soft dirt, since the analogy is with seeds. Get the soft dirt and make sure the seed is planted in there. But then what happens to the rest of it? That's where they use that. Don't get me to mess up the name of the tool, but they got the rakes in. It's like the row, and then they have to then smooth out the ground on the top, because it can't just be unsettled just because the seed is in there. It has to be covered up in a certain way. So for me, I put more in the chat as well regarding this question and how it speaks to the financial piece, which I spoke to directly, in balancing the ledger, using tools like QuickBooks and using Excel sheets and using different tools, but also, just in short, because we are short on time, have the consultation, set up the consultation so you can have an expert financial analysis. And what that's going to do is give you a full picture of where you are, no different than a GPS. You need to know where you are so that you can decide the pathway going forward. And those are the different strategies, different strategic plans, whether you're in, operating in any of the fields that we spoke about today. If you're in education, if you're in the political landscape, if you're in the social economic, you can be wherever you are. It's to have a strategic plan for you that is going to help you with your family goals, to provide that information as needed for those steps to be taken, and not just saying the thing, but actually knowing how to implement those things. So the how-tos and what to ask when you're sitting in front of certain people, be it your CPA or your enrolled agent, or you need to know what to ask when you're in these positions. And for that, I want to say to everyone under the sound of my voice, we are offering you a complimentary consultation to start. Don't let this information come your way and you reject it. And as we all come back onto the stage, the people perish for the lack of knowledge, but not because knowledge wasn't presented, it's because they rejected it. So I'd say to everyone as I close, don't reject the knowledge. Don't reject the insight that each one of these panelists brought from their heart, from their passion, from their scholarly knowledge, from their own experiences. Let it be where you take it and you run with it, because the vision has been written clear. We wrote the vision, we made it plain, and we're executing that vision so that those of anyone behind us can go and run with it. With that being said, I do want to just take a moment to restate that Change the Narrative is now a nonprofit. We're going to be needing supports in the future, but we also want collaboration. This is not about a charity, right? This is about us building. So I want to be clear on our mission as we close. Change the Narrative. We believe transformation begins with truth, not his truth, her truth, their truth, truth, period. Objective truth. I know some people might be clutching their pearls like, what do you mean? But you can't tell me not my truth. Yes, I can. I just did. Too late. Okay. Our mission is rooted in the power of the CTN, the Change the Narrative 3C principles that drive everything that we do. Challenge the rhetoric that limits the communities, that limits communication, like I talked about things being taboo, that limits you from weighing your voice that you hear over some external voices, that limits you in our communities. Consider yourself and the parts of you as the solution, inputting you as the remedy. You are now what's needed. You are what is moving forward. You are history, and change the narrative through intentional actions, movement. Our steps are ordered, and he is a light upon our steps so we can move. There's no fear. Dr. Lammy mentioned it. We have not been given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. And don't let ego perpetrate as fear. Don't let fear perpetrate as ego. We supposed to have ego. You supposed to have a self-identity. Don't let your sense of confidence be snuffed out because somebody is calling it something else. No, fear is the core issue that we have faced, and we're going to be intentional, and we're going to dispel and rebuke fear because we have the ability to do so. We exist to forge impactful relationships that bridge the gap between grassroots organizations and C-suite leadership, creating a powerful ecosystem of change. We don't just assist challenges or the challenge communities, but we partner with them. We establish healthy, thriving neighborhoods by fundamentally redefining what community means in this here 21st century. We can't go by what was, what could have been, should have been. What is in this present. Our work isn't about charity, it's about equity. All right. Our work is not about charity, it's about equity. It's about recognizing that everyday neighborhoods has untapped potential. I work with youth, I have my own children, and sometimes you don't even know the gifts that are in them. I walked up on my daughter the other day and she was drawing out eyeballs, just different eyes. And I said, wow, amongst all of the other accolades, you have this gift, this talent that could take you so far as an artist if you wanted to. You didn't want to do any of this other scholarly academic stuff. You just wanted to be an artist. That's in you. So that passion, and to support the young people too, just to know in their passions, so that you show them pathways where their passions produce. Their passions produce. That way they're not in the 9 to 5 or 40-hour week job that they hate. That way, this is what they do. What I do, I love doing. I inhale and exhale this because it's a part of who I am. It's a part of my mission. And lastly, every partnership has a power to shift an entire narrative from deficient to abundance. And with all that being said, everything that was said, there's so much to still be said and done. So we will have a to be continued at the end of this, but we will definitely come back. We thank you all for sharing your time with us, for not counting it robbery to be with us today. To each and every panelist, thank you for taking the mission and taking the call with this call to action to be the history that we will forge the future forward. I appreciate everyone. And with that being said, y'all have a blessed one. Let God do what God said he was going to do. He said his word will not return void. So go and do what you have been purposed and called to do. You are covered, like Teton said, and we all can change the narrative. Peace and blessings, everyone. Good night.
Giovanna Cubala conosci neghe Shange Baro Nobele Nega Giovanna Cubala conosci neghe Shange Baro Nobele Nega Giovanna Cubala conosci neghe Shange Baro Nobele